Also, I curse. I hope that doesn't offend you.
I do too, so we're
Okay,
good.
good. So you don't have to do one of those things where like, oh wait, is it okay if I curse on this show?
Uh, I'm yeah, I'm not really refined.
Beautiful. Great. Well, Helen, thank you so much for joining me on my show. I really appreciate your time today. I know that these are weird circumstances, so I'm grateful.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. I always like to start my podcasts with learning about you as a person. I related a lot to the bio that you sent me. I had a little bit of a scrappy upbringing myself, but I find that um, people that have been through challenges, especially in their youth, are armored to a bit where it makes them be able to like push themselves through adversity, and I find that they make really great entrepreneurs. That's just my own personal experience, but with that being said, I appreciated you being so just sort of open about some of the challenges that you've had, because I find that to be very relatable and also very authentic. So I'd like to just start by opening up to you a little bit and just tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Yeah, so I kind of grew up not your typical upbringing, as you mentioned. Was raised by a single mother who was from Mexico,
Yeah,
barely spoke any English coming into the
she's
country.
probably a very badass woman, I imagine.
She is. She
Yeah.
is. She's a trip. My mother is like she's everything. Anyone that meets her is just blessed to like be in her presence. She's a
Mm.
very memorable person. Um, but yeah, I mean, she just seeing my mom like raising her kids and doing it alone, and I it literally gives me zero excuse in life. And I always go back to that because I've seen her struggle. I've seen people be really rude to her because she doesn't speak English, and she did everything on her own. I mean, she literally, brought it. We had not much growing up. My parents divorced, and they went through really hard times and completely bankrupted our family, being going through a divorce. So my mom was really struggling with cash and money. There's times we didn't have money for food. We didn't have money to like heat the house, and we lived in Philadelphia at the time. We
No way,
used
I'm from Philly.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up, there was times where we couldn't heat the house. So every summer we would chop wood for the entire summer so that we would have enough wood to actually put in the fireplace and heat the whole house. To this day, I hate the smell of like fireplace or like barbecue because of that. Because I would go to school and it would like completely reek of smoke, and we were like, "Oh, I love that smell. It's like you were at a cabin." I'm like, "Yeah, I was at a cabin. I was feeding a fire all night to keep the house warm." So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I just kind of grew up like that, but we were always super positive. My mom was very positive force and very positive female um like person in my life. And as I've grown up as an adult, I just go back to those experiences, and I still to this day I don't know how she did it. So
Mm.
I feel like I have zero excuse to complain. She brought me and my siblings into this country to have a better opportunity, and that was really one of her main driving forces of like wanting to come to America, as she knew Mexico wasn't going to give her much opportunity being a female, being a single mom. And she like did it on her own to come into this country. And, I really, anything that happens now, I'm like, well, I speak English, I'm healthy, I have good support system. If my mother was able to do it without any of that, what is my excuse? Like, I have zero excuse for that. So, my upbringing, like you said, it just kind of makes you super scrappy and makes you more weathered to this kind of
Yeah.
situation. And I actually had a post on Twitter where I mentioned, I'm like, I feel like growing up poor kind of set me up for this pandemic. Like eating the same food every day, like totally fine. Like being creative with like your food choices and like the little like packaged soups and stuff, and you throw in some vegetables or whatever. Like I'm used to being so scrappy like that, that for me this is like my comfort zone, not having to go out. I'm like, I never went out. I didn't have that childhood. I didn't go to spring break or anything like that. I had to pay for my books. Like it just wasn't an option.
uh, I really loved how you talk about it, like doesn't provide you an excuse. And you say like, I don't know how they did it, man. My parents had me really young. Um, and I'm 33 now and I have a dog, right? And sometimes I look at them and they're in their teens with like two kids and just like, what were you guys thinking? Like how on earth did you do this? And the whole 80-hour work weeks and just so relentless and so relentless. So yeah, anytime I like start feeling bad, I remember one time I was having a conversation with my pop, um, just trying to make it. I moved to Florida 10 years ago and I was in some trouble and stuff. So kind of was starting all over and starting my companies. And he says, so wait a minute, you want to be on your own and work and do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, and like you don't want to be scrappy and work hard all the time, and like you don't want to be tired. And then reminded me of how challenging it was for them to raise us as a family and like everything they sacrificed. So I appreciate you opening with that, because I think that it's like you said, it's turned into a real asset for me because I don't need a whole lot. And I like really value my parents. So I just think it's, I just love hearing those stories. So I do appreciate you starting with that. But,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
so
Not enough people share that kind of side of them. Like
yeah, I
everyone
agree.
sees the end result, and people might meet me and not think anything of it. They're like, "Oh, she's so well put together, and she has a business." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it wasn't always like this.
Mm,
It came from somewhere." And I think it's important for people to know that your story doesn't have to be so traditional, and it definitely you can find success even in the most uncommon upbringing, and that shouldn't define you. I think I see a lot of young people that they say, well, I grew up in this neighborhood, or I grew up this way or that way, and I'm like, there's no excuse. Like if you're healthy and you're willing, you can do it. Like you can create a different future for yourself. It's all in your mindset.
yeah, I really love that. And again, I thank you for being so transparent with that.
Yeah.
So the reason for our podcast is because we want to talk about your company. We want to talk about SwagUp. First off, as a web marketer, I love your guys' website. Um, I'm a real fan of when you go to a website and you know exactly what it is that they do. And it just has like, we build swag packs. And I know that's so subtle and so simple, but seriously, um, there's a gazillion websites that I look at, and you go there and you're just not quite sure what it is that they do, like what their business is in. So um, as a copywriter, mostly, like I'm a real fan of copy, and I'm a real fan of like words and clear communication on the web. And
Yeah.
just like we build swag packs. It's so simple, but I thought that was so great.
Yeah, no, we're actually in the middle of a site redesign, but yeah, we focus on on building, creating high quality swag into kits. We also have the technology to kind of support all the headaches that come with it.
Mm.
Everyone loves the idea of creating, gift boxes and stuff to send out to their clients or to their employees or students. And then when they go down to like actually execute it, it's like, where am I going to store all this stuff? How am I going to ship it? How am I going to get people's addresses? Who's going to assemble it? Who do I work with all of this? So we've kind of solved for all of those pain points that come with creating a swag into a campaign. So we not only help you pick out those items, and we have a curated catalog that's just high-end quality stuff. Like our site doesn't have thousands of like tchotchke like stuff that's going to break. That's not really what we stand for. If you want it, we'll give it to you, but that's not really like our wheelhouse. And then we'll help you with all of it, from the design, from creating it into an actual experience, and taking care of everything that requires to make that experience happen.
Well, wow, that answers my next question basically, because when I looked at this, I did think to myself, there's a gazillion vendors that put hats and t-shirts and pens together. And I remember thinking like, damn, this is you're really jumping in with the sharks trying to play in this arena. And so I was playing around in my head. So I'm a digital marketing director for a company called Journey Pure, where it's a big addiction treatment conglomerate basically. And so we have a lot of business development reps, and they're always dishing out swag to maybe their referrals or whatever. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, getting the swag has never really been that much of a challenge. But then I'm thinking the challenge has always been the logistics behind it, because it's a real pain in the ass, right? Like, I got boxes of pens in this closet, and then I got like stacks of papers, and then everybody's saying like I need more. And I'm like, no fucking way. We got boxes of it over here that you guys haven't even used, you know?
Yeah.
So hearing how you guys have built an actual, how do we call it? Like a curated all-in-one infrastructure
Mhm.
where it's not even something that you need to incorporate into your marketing department. It's just SwagUp is that extension of your guys' department.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be speaking for you, but from what you're telling me, it sounds like that's basically what you guys are offering.
Yeah, I need to hire you to pitch our clients. That's
Get it,
that's
sales.
exactly, we're basically your chief swag officer for your company. We take care of everything from curating it and taking all the headaches. Um, I always find it so fascinating when I hear clients on the phone. Like, I always like to ask them, like, if you didn't come to us, like, what would you be doing? Like, what
Mhm.
are you doing now for this? And the answers I get are so crazy. And sometimes it's from like Fortune 500 companies. They're like, oh, the CEO actually has it in his garage and we just slack him. I'm like, what? Like, that's not ideal. And like, your poor CEO, like, he has better things, or he or she has better things to do. And, or they're saving it in their car, in their garage, or so forth. So, yeah, we handle all of the logistics and kind of make it as easy as possible in our platform. And, we allow for multiple teams to actually collaborate on swag projects. And that helps bring the cost down. A lot of companies don't realize that having marketing order swag from one company and HR order swag from another company, and
Mhm.
some office manager orders it from another company, you end up having a huge problem, one, in cost, because you're paying setups multiple times for each one. But aside from that, time and brand consistency. Like, I've seen so many companies that buy swag and they're like, well, we don't use it because it doesn't match the logo in our office. The company doesn't want to refund us. And like, that's such a shitty experience. And, why not have one platform that everyone in your company can use? You can warehouse everything. Multiple teams can pull inventory. You know what you have. It's not in some, storage office. And now, with everyone working from home, people are trying to store it in their homes, and they're like, our kids are getting into this. Like, I can't have all of our swag materials in my house. It's just not ideal.
Yeah, and I noticed on your website how you guys have the custom packs. And I thought that was really interesting because putting myself in your guys's position, that's going to create a whole nother like mess of logistics, right? Um, Speaking just strictly from a growth standpoint, the easiest way to do it is to pick one thing, maybe come up with like 4 or 5 variations of it, and then you can scale it. But then there's the other side that thinks it's never that simple, because every company is going to want to have their own different modifications or whatever. Uh, Give us a little bit of like a behind the scenes with all the solutions that you guys have come up with to make sure that even though it's customizable, you can still deliver it on time and deliver it right the first time, because that's what really sucks when you order swag, is it never actually comes in perfectly. Like you got to get, like I said, pens from this place and papers from this place and shirts and socks from all different places, and there's different variations in it, and it's just because you're getting it from different vendors. So like, when I was looking at that, I was thinking like, wow, that's really, really cool, but that's got to be very challenging. So like, how
Yeah.
do you guys do that?
One, hire people that are thoughtful, like,
Mm.
just off the bat. Like, anyone that's buying swag, I feel like, comes from a very caring personality. it's a thoughtful way to do anything. It's a thoughtful way to do marketing. It's a thoughtful way to do sales, thoughtful way to onboard someone. It's just a thoughtful experience. So everyone we have on our team kind of comes from that mindset of like really caring about what they do. So from the salesperson, like they really care about your brand and protecting your brand and understanding it and the do's and don'ts of your logoing. Our procurement team, they take it a step further. If anything in the proofs don't match or anything like that, they can, they alert our team to kind of notify the client. And then something very unique to our business that I honestly don't know any company that has this, but we actually have an entire QA, like a quality assurance department, that when the items actually come in, they inspect everything. And sometimes we're probably too picky that we've actually had vendors tell us that they don't want to work with us because they said we're unrealistic. And that's fine, because I don't want to work with companies or vendors that don't care about their end product. We understand that our gifting and our swag that we're offering, it's not just swag that you're putting on a conference table and there's thousands of them. Like, you're sending it to one person, and if there's a nick or a scratch or some type of inconsistency, it's going to be louder and more noticeable because it's curated in a gift and it's only going to one person. So we want to make sure that everything kind of lands the right way. If you're investing X amount of money in it, it has to be perfect all the way through. So our team's really like on top of it with that. And we've gotten really lucky that they're sometimes they come to me like, Helen, this client's like, their shirt doesn't look good. Like, look at it. And I'm like, it's not that bad. Like but we're just so like picky about it. We see so much of it that we're probably more OCD than our clients would be about the swag, because, we want to make sure they're having a really great experience and that it like becomes a viral thing for them.
Yeah. How did you guys build into that? I may be completely making this up, and if I am, forgive me, but I thought I saw somewhere you guys are almost at like 50 employees now.
We are.
So like, I can't imagine you hired all 50 people at the same time. Like,
Oh.
you know what I mean? Like, I was just fascinated with like the journey. So let me even back up a little bit before that. How did this idea start? Was this something that you guys just came up during like a coffee conversation, or did you see like an opening in a market that you wanted to take advantage of?
No. So Michael Martocci, he founded the company, and he had experience with ordering swag in the past. He had a startup when he was in college called Click, and was ordering swag for that, and saw it was like painful, and went to worked at a VC company and had to order swag for that as well. And again, like that kind of idea of like, this sucks kind of experience kept coming to his mind. And it initially started with him wanting to create a brand. Like, when you think of soda, you think Coca-Cola. When you think of sportswear, you think Nike, Lululemon. Like, there's very like distinct identified like brands with every like industry. And the promotional industry has been kind of stale. There's really isn't a brand that speaks out, and there really isn't a brand that speaks out to your startup culture and to the new generation of business. They're working with really nice platforms and really nice softwares. They're working with Slack, and we have Stripe, and those are really nice brands. And
Yeah.
we just never really saw like your swag brand in that umbrella of like what a user wants to see visually and just like overall the ease of using it. So it first started with just, let me just dedicate my time to startups and focusing on doing startup swag. That's actually what the first company's name was. And he focused on that because that's the first thing people do when they raise money is, let's buy swag. And from there, he had the vision of just having it where, it's very curated item. Don't show a million products. We know people want Swell. They want Sticker Mule. They want, Corsical, Patagonia. Like, why show them all these cheap alternatives? That's not what people want. So we started with like a very curated list. From there, we actually had, we changed our name to SwagUp, but we had a client that actually asked us for packs. And they're like, hey, like, can you guys do some boxes? And we're like, yeah, sure, we'll do boxes. So we do the boxes. And then he calls us back up. Do you mind assembling them?
Mm.
And at that point, we only had 2 employees. We had, it was Michael and like a procurement person. And we didn't really have like that many. So we're like, okay, like we'll assemble them. We like brought in family and friends. We're assembling them in the kitchen and like started getting, and we didn't have a warehouse or anything. Like we literally started it in Michael's mom's home. So very scrappy, like upbringing. We're like, okay, let's put a landing page. Built everything on Wix and put the website up and like, all right, we'll do packs and start promoting that and see how that works. Because there really wasn't anyone at that time that was doing packs. Everyone was doing swag and everyone was doing, bulk items, but there wasn't an experience for someone to do packs. And most companies were having to do it themselves. So we saw that there was an area that wasn't really tapped into. So, that's kind of where we started to do the packs. And from there, it just kind of rolled into, well, can you store them? Can you do this? Can you do that? And we just kept kind of adding to our product. We've always been very big about listening to your clients and to what they need. I think if we would have went in and did market research and saw that nobody's looking for this and no one's doing that, like I think we probably wouldn't have done this approach. But since we've always been very customer centric, our product has evolved and grown with our clients, and it's now become a huge warehouse, and now we have 50 employees and we're growing, and it's crazy how fast it happens.
Is it getting to the point now where you're actually starting to talk about the little stories, back when there was only 5 of us and we fucking like slept on the floor, and now, it's all big time. I miss those days sometimes. I hope that you guys like have those stories to share. So
yeah, we do.
Yeah, I
still
bet.
have employees that were with us from the very beginning, like
Sure.
that complaint that they just share about it. They're like, remember we were in a warehouse with no AC and it was like the hottest summer. Like, yeah. So yeah, we have so many great experiences from that.
Yeah, and I loved a lot of what you just said there, because you really you really changed my viewpoint on it. So you and I got introduced, I think it was D-Rock or something, sent out a tweet just saying that like you were looking to be a guest on some podcast. And so I looked it up. I was like, oh, swag, like that's interesting. Sure, why not? And just being fully transparent, like I didn't really think that it was really like that sophisticated or anything. But like listening to you talk about it, wow, like you're absolutely right. There is no, when you think of startups and you think of new online business culture, there are definitely those like identifiable brands that mediate some kind of pain point. You mentioned Slack, like, yes, absolutely. I think maybe for project management, we mentioned Trello before. If you think of other softwares, like I'm an SEO, so there's one called SEMrush that we use a lot, and they really do have like brand recognition. But the reality is that the person to person, the gifts, like the extension between the business and the client and how you make them feel, that really is just as valuable as all the fancy tech stuff. It's still probably the most valuable thing that there is. And listening to you talk about it, I was like, damn, like that makes perfect sense for something that is so important in business as, let's just call it gifts or swag or, subtle gestures of like appreciation. It's every business everywhere. Like that's going to exist. And I can't think of a single place where I would go, oh, you need swag? Go there. It's always a pain in the ass to find the local vendor, the local printer. And like Yeah, like I said, I didn't mean to brush it off or anything. I thought it was just kind of like another upstart company. It would be a cool conversation. But after listening to you, like there really is something to be said there. There's a brand to be built there. And I think you guys can own it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's our mission. Like we want to be known as the brand for
Yeah.
swag management, and not just your your only vendor, but your only vendor across all teams, because there's a lot of overlap, and some companies that are larger that have multiple offices in different places, or
Mm,
or now that companies are fully remote, how do they still create really great experiences, whether if it's internally or with clients, or we're getting a lot of colleges now as well, like reaching out
oh
to us
yeah.
because we're going to have to onboard students online, and that's something that they've never experienced before, and it's really hard to kind of, how do you create the sentiment, and how do you create the value and your mission as a company, in a way that's thoughtful and not like promotion-y, like too like quirky or anything like that, but just like more on a thoughtful level, that's going to resonate with whoever's receiving it. So it's been great, like being able to go through that with some of these companies and solve that for them. And the stories that we hear, they're like, oh my God, I was building this all by myself, or I would have to bribe coworkers to come and stuff 1,000 totes. And we used to have all the interns like, lie to the interns that this is the start of marketing. Like you have to like bear the grunt of ordering swag and like putting it together. Like, don't even do that. Like, why do that? Just like hire a company like us, like hire SwagUp to do that for you. And we don't even charge for the assembly. It's part of working with us. And same with our platform. Our platform, we don't charge for our platform either, because we feel like it's a complement to swag, and it's a tool that's needed. You can't do one without the other. It's just, it's really difficult for companies to do that.
Yeah. And that's like a perfect transition. First of all, thank you so much for your time. I won't keep you too much longer, but I
Yeah.
did want to touch on that last aspect because, again, in my experience with it, the difficult thing is there's two of them. There's the assembly, and then there's the actual dashboard of like ordering it. Um, like it's not anybody's fault. It's just local vendors don't have CTOs. They don't have anybody that understands how to bring somebody through like an easy purchasing experience um, that is like transparent. And what am I trying to say? There's been so many times where I looked at everything with my order, and right before I hit buy, I thought to myself, like, is this all like right? Am I actually buying all the stuff that I need? And so like I haven't looked into your dashboard, obviously, because like I haven't bought anything from you guys, but I want to know how much time and how much of a priority that the technology side of it has been for you.
Yeah, we've completely pivoted from being an agency. Like I think in the beginning of it, we
Mm,
were kind of seen as like an agency, and that's honestly like when I first started into SwagUp, and one of the reasons why I came on board was to kind of make that shift into more of a technology company.
cool.
And that's been more and more of our focus, is creating the technology to kind of support the entire swag, swag for any purpose, and
Mm,
utilizing it across all teams and so forth. So the technology has grown, and we're releasing more and more features every week, refining and perfecting. And now we're starting to integrate with sales platforms and with design platforms, and
cool.
creating partnerships with really big agencies. If you want like a really custom like brandy experience, you can do that through our platform. So we're really thinking outside the box, and it's kind of expanding, and now we're even doing like redeem pages and integrating into your Shopify. You have Zapier connection, so the technology has really become more of a focus. I would say we're getting to a point where swag's probably the least interesting thing we do. It's, if we're become your swag management platform and for the modern workplace, basically.
Helen, this is all really cool. Like seriously, you totally sold me on the idea, on the concept of the functionality behind it, and most importantly, you sold me on the idea, which I think is what you need to sell to like your customer on. Don't worry about that anymore. Just leave it to us, because it's
Yeah,
so annoying, but every business needs it. And then especially the bigger a business gets, if they have different brick and mortar locations, it's just the logistics become a nightmare.
it
And
does.
and yeah, like wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
Good luck on the future of SwagUp. I'm definitely going to be following you. Like I really mean it. Where I think that you guys nailed it. Where there's like a brand opportunity there, not just some new company that you can get some referrals from people, but like actually own that brand space. So I think it's really great what you guys are doing. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for having us on your podcast to kind of explain our story and where we're
Mhm.
going. So it's been great.
Yeah, I'm excited. Cool. Well, let's keep in touch. If anybody wants to reach out to you guys, if anybody needs to inquire about some of your services, obviously the website is swagup.com. But if anybody wants to reach out to you guys directly, like where can they find you?
They can go to our site or they can email me, helen@swagup.com, team@swagup.com. So yeah, they can find
Cool.
us on the web or reach out to us directly. Yeah.
Fantastic. I will put all of those in the show notes to the post. Helen, thanks
Okay.
again for your time. Let's do this
Thank
again in
you.
like a year. I can't wait to see how far you guys are then.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll have to do a follow-up. All
Great.
right.
Later.
Bye.